Hi everyone, I think that's the nicest Dave has ever been to me in my whole career. So I'm Rosa Mitchell, I'm Business Director at Connective 3. I'm going to be talking to you today about confidence. And this is the bit that really tests me because I'm going to have to talk about my career and every inch of me is screaming out to not be arrogant, be humble, be modest. But I'm talking about confidence and being confident in yourself, and I have had a great career over the past 9 years. I've worked with some of the most amazing clients. I've traveled all over the world to awards, to events, to do talking, and I've won awards for my work and for my own personal development. And every inch of me was screaming out then to not be arrogant, but it's just the truth. But before that, so 10 years ago now, when I started my career, which is crazy because I still feel like I'm 17 in my head, I started in-house at a savings and investments company. And I was sat in the first meeting that we had, and my boss at the time was going, oh, we need to do this for PPC, we need to do this for SEO, we need to do this for CRO. And I was like, what on earth do those terms mean? I've got absolutely no idea what they mean. And I just didn't have the confidence to ask. I was a junior exec. They wouldn't have expected me to know anything, but I just felt like I couldn't say anything out loud and I couldn't ask, and I just struggled through not knowing. And then as I got a little bit further on in my career, I learned what SEO was, learned what PPC was. I'm still not sure what CRO is. And we got really a little bit better in my career. I got some good results. I started off in content, realized I couldn't spell for shit, so moved to digital PR. And I got some really good campaign results and had some really creative ideas. And then I'd be sat in meetings, ideas meetings and all that kind of thing, and someone would say something and I'd go, oh, I don't quite agree with that in my head, or I'd be like, oh, I think I could make that idea better. And I just wouldn't say anything, and I'd just sit there and I'd just think, oh, I could do that better, and I wouldn't say anything, and I don't know why, and I couldn't figure out why. And then even as I get a little bit further on in my career, and I've been lucky enough to sit in the senior leadership meetings, there's been times when I've just been like, I don't agree with that. I think I could make that better. I think I can have a better idea here. And I've just not been able to say anything, and I've just not been able to say it. Even now, and I consider myself quite a confident person, I'd feel quite a fraud if I was in front of you talking about this and I wasn't. There's still occasions when I have to do a pitch where my voice starts to shake like this, and I just can't help it. It's an involuntary response. But what I've done is I've really tried to work on myself, and I've tried to learn techniques, read books, go to training, go to conferences to work on my confidence, because I knew once I'd crack that, then I would definitely take my career to the next level. And I feel like that's what's happened. I'm not the only person at the beginning of the career who lacks confidence. A third of young people across all industries lack confidence. And that's a real worrying figure because confidence is such an important thing to have in yourself. So it's a mix of two different things. So it's self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is the belief that you can do a certain thing well because you've done it so many times before. So for example, if you were to make a cup of tea, something so simple, you'd have high self-efficacy doing it because you just do it without thinking because you know how to do it. And then self-esteem. So it's not just a great song by The Offspring. It's a really complicated subject that is tied into your childhood, things that your parents taught you, your siblings, the media, and how you respond to yourself. Self-esteem is really complicated. But what you can do is you can work on your self-esteem and your self-efficacy to get yourself to a point where you can get confident, even if you're in a brand new situation. And confidence is a feeling of trust in your abilities, qualities, and judgment. And I'm sure it's something we've all suffered with before. So yeah, you can grow your confidence to a level where you feel fine in situations where you've got no experience. So if you are given a new task at work, if you are asked to do a talk and you've never done one, if you follow certain tips and advice, you can work your way up to being able to be confident even when you're walking into a brand new situation. Confidence goes hand in hand with resilience. So resilience is the psychological strength to cope with stress and hardship. It's quite a hard time with the economy at the moment. I don't know about you guys, but my mortgage is like gone right up in price. Worried about money. It's just a weird time, and this is the time at the moment when resilience becomes incredibly important for people. And 32% of the working population have low levels of resilience to stress. So if something happens to you that's out of the norm, that sends you into a bit of a tailspin, a third of people just don't know how to handle that and find it really difficult to handle. But we can go through how to handle it today. So they're important in general. It's important to be resilient and confident in general. But as we're all digital marketers here, they kind of become even more important if you want to take your career to the next level. As we all know, digital marketing is not an easy career to be in. We have to be both creative and analytical, so you have to know about big ideas that can work, ways of thinking that you can change things, but you have to be in the data and the numbers at the same time, which can be really challenging. It's incredibly results-driven, so ROI is something that we've heard a million times. If you work in something like SEO, it's really difficult to track exactly how it's working at times. And if you work in the media, and if you work in digital PR, even if you just work on a website, your work is constantly open to public scrutiny, which can be really overwhelming. Like Twitter can just be a really kind of cesspit of horrible commentary on work that you've done. If you are in digital PR and you have an article that has a comment section underneath, it can be like really downheartening to read that. I'm talking about the Daily Mail. And there's lots of other issues that mean that digital marketing is a really difficult industry where you have to work on your confidence and resilience to push yourself forward through it. And you need to be confident to really harness your creativity. If you want to think outside the box, I hate that phrase, I can't believe I've just used it. If you want to think differently to the people around you, if you want to take your campaigns to the next level, you need to be creative, and to be creative, you need confidence. There are certain barriers to being confident, and this is a hugely complex subject, but you can kind of reduce these down to these three. So low self-esteem is a big one. Low self-esteem is when you find it really difficult to take compliments. You use self-deprecating language a lot of the time. So this could be in a meeting where you say, I don't think this is a very good idea, but could we do this? You apologize a lot. You don't think your voice has the right to be heard as well as other people in the room. It's really common amongst young people, but it can affect everyone. And it is a highly complex subject, and I'm not a psychologist, so I can't walk you through it exactly. But there are certain tips and tricks that you can do that you can kind of train your mind to stop feeling that you have low self-esteem. Worry and anxiety is also a big barrier to feeling confident and resilient. When you worry about something, in your head, it can kind of feel like a bit of a release because you feel like you're problem solving and you're thinking, okay, if this outcome happens, I can do this. If that outcome happens, I can do that. But you are then making those outcomes real in your head, and it makes you feel worse. And one of my favorite words is catastrophizing, which I'm trying not to do, but I do quite a lot. Like this morning, I was thinking, oh, what if I walk up on stage and I fall flat on my face? I was like, what's not going to happen? You'll be fine. Which is another barrier. And then the stress response. So right now, I feel nervous. My hands are a little bit shaky. I've got adrenaline pumping through my body. Back when we had real threats that we had to deal with, so if there was a wild animal chasing after you, if there was someone trying to fight you, you'd get adrenaline. So you could either run or you could fight them. And obviously, I can't run away right now. I feel like I could probably fight you all if I had to, but I'm not going to. So it doesn't really help. It doesn't really help. Like, I'm just stood here with like all this adrenaline, and it can like make me like talk a bit more energetic, but you can't really get rid of it. And it's knowing about it and understanding it's there can really help. So you can overcome them. You need to prioritize working on your self-esteem. And this is, again, it's complicated, but there are tips and tricks that you can do that you can work through and keep at that can help with it. So challenging negative beliefs and self-deprecating language is an incredibly important one. And this is something I've been trying to work on for probably about 6 or 7 years now. And I still feel myself falling into that pattern sometimes. If you are in a meeting, don't apologize for an idea. Don't say, oh, this probably isn't good, but your voice has as much right to be heard as anyone else in that room. And whatever room you're in there for a reason. And you have to keep thinking that and believing that and understanding that. And not letting yourself get intimidated by people who have the loudest voice. You have just as much right to be there. If you are a manager, what's really important is helping people recognize the skills that they have and what they're good at and keeping on reinforcing them. If you're not a manager, it's really important to recognize that in yourself as well. This sounds like a little bit cheesy, and I still do it now. If I get some good feedback from a client or from a colleague, I have like a little folder in my emails where I put it in. It sounds so cheesy. And then sometimes if I'm feeling like I'm not very good at my job, I'm not doing this very well, I'll go and have a little look at it, and I'll just remind myself, no, you are good at what you do. You've done X, Y, and Z. You've done this. You've built this. And it really helps when you are feeling like you've got low self-esteem to combat that. Encourage assertiveness as well. So this is the sitting in a meeting thinking that your voice is not able to be heard. If you're a manager, make sure your team feel like they are comfortable enough to be able to challenge what you're saying. It's incredibly important. I run our Manchester office, and I work with absolutely incredible people who are really smart and really good at the job. And I mean, they might disagree with you, but I feel like none of them feel like they can't speak to me about something, or if they don't agree with me, they can't tell me. And I think that's incredibly important. If you run a team and you don't let people be themselves, or if you don't let them let you know if they think something can go in a different direction, it keeps your team at the lower level of the self-esteem. So fear of failure is one of the most, learning about the fear of failure really kind of was one of the biggest things that changed the trajectory of my career, I think. So has fear ever held you back? So it's definitely held me back before. In my first agency, there was a content manager job going. It was content strategist job was going, and I was an exec. And there was 3 people going for the role. And then I was like, I could go for it. I could go for the role. I definitely would have got an interview. But I felt like the fear of other people seeing me not get the role was more overwhelming than the good thought of possibly getting the role. And I just didn't go for it. And I just thought, no, I can't be bothered, or like, I don't even want it anyway, even though I know that I did. And my manager at the time, who's a friend of mine now, I spoke to him about it, and he said, yeah, you absolutely would have got that job if you went for it. Like, we were surprised that you didn't. But even regardless of that, if I had gone for it and hadn't have got it, I could have got feedback from what I'd needed to do to be better and to try at it again. But it just held me back. And this is something I've faced quite a few times in my career. I've been so scared of what other people are going to think of me when I do something that it stopped me from doing it altogether, which is just ridiculous. You shouldn't be afraid to fail. You shouldn't waste energy or time to cover up failure. What's really important is to learn from your failure and go on to the next challenge. It's okay to fail, and if you're not failing, you're not growing. I have failed loads of times. I've done a talk in Copenhagen where I had red lipstick all over my teeth, and like the pictures afterwards were just horrific to look at. I've tripped up when I've walked onto the stage, which is again something that I fear all the time still doing. I've done campaigns in digital PR that I've got 0 links, which I've put loads of time into. There's been lots and lots of failures in my career, and each one of them I've made sure I learn from. I make sure I don't wear red lipstick when I do talks anymore. And it's really important to know that it's okay to fail if you fail fast and you learn and grow from it. If you're a manager, you need to nurture an environment where your staff are not afraid to fail. They know if they do something that doesn't get very good results, that isn't exactly the right path, that the client hits back on, they need to be able to know that they can do that and they can learn that and grow from that. And then the next time when they do that, it won't be like that again. It'll be much better. And it's really important to nurture that environment. You don't want people to be scared and stay in their box the whole time. You'll never get a creative team if you do that. So the growth mindset is something that I find so important. It's to persevere in the face of failure. It requires a mentally tough attitude, which links back to resilience. And without it, we're likely to lose confidence or interest in trying again and completely give up. So Carol Dweck is an educational psychologist, and she coined the growth mindset theory. So she was looking at children in school, and the ones that had the better outcomes and the ones that maybe had the worst outcomes. And she found there was 2 different mindsets. There was the fixed mindset. So if you tried something and straight away you weren't good at it, then you weren't going to try it again. You were like, oh, giving it a go, I didn't like it at all, I'm not good at it, I'm not going to try it. And then there was the growth mindset. So these were the children that tried something and they weren't quite good at it straight away, so they were like, okay, I'll try it this way instead, tried it another way. That didn't quite work, so they tried it another way, and they kept going until they could complete that task. They didn't let the fear of failure hold them back. They learned from each of their failures, and they pushed forward further and further. And my mum was a PE teacher, and she said she sees this all the time in sport. The people who are the most successful are the ones who do not stop trying. Like, you can't beat someone who never stops trying. It's incredibly important to keep going and learn from it each time. You can always, always get better at what you do. You might feel like you're not very good at a certain area. You might even feel like you're at the very best you can be in a certain area. But you can always push forward to be better, always. One of the best bits of advice that I got, actually, and this sounds so simple, if you don't know how to do something, then Google it or watch it on YouTube. And like, that sounds so simple, I know, but that's helped me out so many times in my career. I've just watched a YouTube walkthrough on how to do a tech audit, and I mean, that's a bit more complicated than a YouTube, but then just done it, and it's been great. So, worrying. You can stop worry. Well, you can try and stop worry. So there are 3 really important things to do. So build trust. So if you're a manager, you need to build trust with your team so they can speak to you if they are feeling worried about something and you can work on the problem together. If you don't manage anyone and you are the one feeling worried, you need to build trust with the people around you who you think can help you out, so you can talk through what's going on and you can help problem solve together. I know sharing your problem is a really important thing, and it stops it being completely in your head, and it stops you catastrophizing because it's right there on paper and you can get someone else's perspective to it. Challenge the anxious thoughts that you have and the worries thoughts that you have. So thought pops into your head like, what if you fall over when you walk on stage? And I'm like, well, what if you do? Then you just get up and carry on. It's like, well, what if everyone laughs at you? Well, then everyone laughs and you break the ice, like it's fine. Well, what if you hurt your leg? Well, I don't know, then you go to the hospital. Like, keep on challenging those anxious thoughts and challenge each one of them, and each one will have a solution and it'll stop it in its tracks. And then if that really isn't working and you really can't stop this worry, then I find it really useful to brainstorm ideas on how to solve the problem, get them out on paper, write a list and have a solution. And for me personally, that stops the worry in my head then. Well, it doesn't stop it completely, but it reduces it right down if I know I've got a plan in place, which helps then me feel a lot more confident about the situation and resilience to the stress that I've got about it. So comparison as well is a really difficult thing to deal with if you want to work on your confidence and your resilience. It's the thief of joy, which is really true. Researchers found that comparing breeds feelings of envy, low self-confidence, and depression, and it compromises our ability to trust others and trust our team. So how do you stop comparison? So the ways that I find it quite useful is to, first of all, to celebrate others' success. If someone's done something and you're really jealous of it, try and think, no, I'm happy for them, send them a congratulatory message, speak to them about it. Number two, see how they've done it and try and reverse engineer it for yourself. So don't see it as a competitor, don't see it as a threat, see it as something you can learn from and follow it through with them. And I think the third most important one is to understand that everyone has different journeys and different paths, and no one has the same start as you. And the person who's done really well might have had a million different privileges that you haven't had. Or it might be the exact opposite, and you might have had a million different privileges that this other person hasn't had. And it's important to know that everyone has a different path, and everyone has a different journey to get where they are. And as long as you are on your path, you shouldn't let others deter you from it. Okay, I'm going to rush through this because I've only got a couple of minutes left. So, the comfort zone. Everyone knows the phrase the comfort zone. What it is a psychological state in which things feel familiar to a person and they are at ease and in control of their environment, experiencing low levels of anxiety and stress. If you're at home watching TV, you're probably in your comfort zone. 55% of Brits never leave their comfort zone, which I think is an absolutely terrifying figure. 31% of people can't remember the last time they tried anything new. Even more terrifying than that is 45% of Brits live in fear that they'll one day regret this, which I just think is absolutely terrifying. To be a creative, to be someone who can take things to the next level, to disrupt, you need to live outside the comfort zone. Openness to experience, which is one of the big 5 personality traits, is the best predictor of creative achievement. If you are open to experience, you're going to try new things, you're going to put yourself outside your comfort zone, and you're going to be better overall. So always try and avoid the safe choice. If you've got 2 choices in front of you, go for the one that's a little bit more scary, a little bit different that you can learn from. Say yes more. If you're offered a new task in work, a new challenge, don't overload yourself so you end up burnt out, but try and say yes to more things. Volunteer for new tasks, kind of similar to the previous point, and then seek feedback. So if you feel like you've pushed yourself out your comfort zone, you didn't think it was very good, get feedback so you can learn from it the next time. So how to practice all this at work? Challenge the negative thoughts that come through, that's really important. Encourage people to pick up new skills and boost their knowledge, or do that for yourself. Set small goals and change one small habit at a time. So this was the key for me. I started learning all about this stuff and reading and going to conferences, and it all seemed quite overwhelming at first. So I started with the negative thoughts and I started challenging them, and it ended up becoming a habit, and I stopped having them as much. So then I started saying yes to more, and then one little tiny bit at a time from what I've spoken to you about is the best way to do it. Highlight and build on strengths. Keep that little email folder if it works for you. If not, just keep thinking about what you're good at. Encourage proactivity and independence. So if you can Google something, Google it. If you can figure something out on your own, try and figure it out on your own. It's really great for resilience and understanding yourself. And encourage risk. So if you get the chance to take a risk, then take it. And then embrace failure. Failure is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. So the key takeaways. Low self-esteem, worrying and anxiety, and the fight or flight response are the main barriers to confidence and resilience. Working on improving self-esteem, embracing failure, having a growth mindset, worrying less, and stopping comparisons are the best way to grow your confidence and resilience. If you push yourself and your staff outside the comfort zone, you'll get more creativity, you'll get better problem solving, and it'll be better overall. And practicing confident techniques will improve your work, your attitude, and your perception of yourself. Just like any other skill in life, confidence takes practice. Trust that making small changes will add up. I remember speaking to my sister's fiance when he was playing guitar, and he's a musician by trade, and he was just so good at it, and he was just brilliant. Any song he listens to, he can pick up on guitar. And I was like, you're just so naturally good at guitar, aren't you? And he was like, no, I practice for 4 hours every day. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And confidence is the exact same thing. It's a muscle that you need to keep building up by doing different things, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, speaking to people, going to events, or whatever works for you, whatever's different for you. And be kind to yourself. So I've done a variation of this talk quite a few times. And every time that I've done it, I've been in a really good place, and I've been loving it and going through it. Being very vulnerable with you guys, I'm going through a bit of a hard time at the moment, and I was dreading doing this talk, absolutely dreading it. And then I spoke to Charlie and Frankie about it, and I was like, shall I cancel, shall I not? And then I was like, if I can't do a talk on resilience and confidence when I'm feeling like I need it, then what is the point overall? I'm so proud of myself for doing these little practices and little techniques to build it up over time, that I feel like when I go through hard times, I can get through them, and I can stand up in front of all you people and talk about the importance of it. And you can do that as well. It's really important, and it's really good. And then to finish, from a quote from a wonderful drag queen, RuPaul. So the key to navigating this life is to not take it too seriously. That's when the party begins. In work, if you do something wrong, if you fail, nothing, unless maybe if you're a doctor, if there's any doctors here, I'm sorry, no one's going to die. It's not going to be the end of the world. If you learn from it, and if you know you can grow from it, then that's really the key. That's the most important thing. Thanks. I don't think we've got time for questions, but thanks everyone.